North Carolina lawmaker is trying to close a loophole that doesn't require rapists or sex offenders to register on the National Sex Offender Registry just because they're military veterans. NBC Charlotte reporter Michelle Bowden spoke with him about the loophole.
I remember looking out the window and seeing a whole bunch of cops.
Vicki Harmon lives here in these upscale Lake Wiley apartments with her 4-year-old son. Last June, she remembers quite the commotion.
2 people yelling.
One of the people, this man, Basil Kingsbury, dishonorably discharged from the Army after serving 7 years for rape and forcible sodomy in military courts. Harmon regularly checks the sex offender registry.
Yes, especially because my kid.
And yet, there was nothing to show her the man living just upstairs was a convicted rapist. Even the York County Sheriff's Department didn't know. They arrested Kingsbury that June day on domestic violence charges and released him, unaware of his past.
If you're a rapist or a sex offender of any kind, you should register.
Should, but don't have to, thanks to a loophole in the law. Once former military members serve their prison time and are discharged, it's up to them, sort of an honor system, to notify the state they're living in and get on the sex offender registry. A spokesman for the Department of Defense admitted in 2013, 13% of convicted sex offenders left military prisons and disappeared. So what do you think then to find out that you had this convicted sex offender living here who had not registered and got away with it because he was a former military man?
That's just ridiculous. I can't believe it.
Neither can North Carolina Senator Richard Burr.
And that's the loophole. It shouldn't be a voluntary reporting. It should be a mandatory.
Late last week, he introduced legislation to close the loophole.
This legislation assures every American in the future that no matter whether you go through the civilian court system or the military court system, if you're convicted as a sex offender, we're going to make sure that the communities you live in know exactly the label that should be placed on you.
Kingsbury is now living in Georgia, where the State Bureau of Investigation there spent months trying to track him.
This is a sex offender who has fallen between the cracks.
Are you aware that he should be on the sex offender registry?
It wasn't until a reporter at our sister station in Atlanta found him that Kingsbury finally signed up for the sex offender registry. In Charlotte, Michelle Bowden, NBC Charlotte.
Well, last August, an Inspector General report for the Department of Defense acknowledged this is a problem and suggested some immediate policy changes.